Hello and welcome to the Outcomes Over Hours show. I'm Tina Patterson and I'm delighted with the guest that I've got today. I'm here with Diana Wu David, and Diana is formerly an executive at the Financial Times. She's also author of the book Future Proof: Reinventing Work in the Age of Acceleration, which sounds pretty interesting. She also runs the company, the Future Proof Lab, where she works with CEOs and boards to help them to improve their leadership agility, influence, collaboration, and resilience. Welcome, Diana, to the Outcomes Over Hours show.
Thank you, Tina. Super great to be here.
Fantastic. Well, I know you are passionate about all things about the future of work, but I actually want to start going back a little bit. I'd love to hear a bit about your own leadership style and how it has changed and evolved over time, as well as to where it is today.
So for sure, it evolves. I like to think that it evolves even now and into the future. The big changes have been going from, of course, being somebody in, the beginning of my career and middle of my career. But I would say the biggest change was at Financial Times and then after, which was leading a team from Australia to India. Most of the time, everybody was in a different office. I had sort of one or two people in each office across the world, really. And we would see each other maybe once a year, and we would be on calls. And so this idea of virtual collaboration is something that I got used to. And everybody was in a different country and had different experiences and environment, et cetera. So that was a pivotal point of adapting my leadership to really be about, as you say, outcomes, not hours. It really had to be, okay, what is it that you need to do? Because I'm not going to see you. I don't know. I don't even know what you do all week, as long as the things happen the way that they need to happen. And crucially, you feel supported in whatever way you need to be supported to be able to achieve those outcomes. And also, a sense of belonging and community and camaraderie and, excitement about your work, all the things that make you work well and thrive, then that was sort of the leadership aha that I had over 10 years of leading different teams in the FT, Financial Times. And then when I left to go found Future Proof Lab, it was another pivot where all of a sudden, and also as a portfolio careerist, being on boards, I had to do a lot more influence. So it was rethinking what my role was as a catalyst, as a leader, as a coach. I still have my own team to work with. And in the future, that's how I see my leadership evolving even more. So I think decentralized leadership is really interesting. I run my own future-proof community for senior executives, designing what's next and thinking about, I do lead that community, right? I founded it. I bring people in. I give them this onboarding kind of roadmap with our course, but then what? Like, you can't lead directively like you do in a company, a decentralized community or movement or organization to create change. So that's my future leadership that I'm excited about, is how can I really upgrade my capacity to lead without title.
Oh, beautiful. I love that lead without title, which is such an important philosophy, I think, as a leader to think about as well. Well, I'm interested because I know that you think a lot about the future and future proofing as well. And I'd love your views of what would you share with people that you believe are the 2 to 3 skills that you think that leaders should be thinking about now as they think about how they're going to lead over the coming decade or so, particularly in the context of you working with CEOs and boards. What do you share with them and what would you want people to know?
It's such an interesting question because the pandemic and some of the clients I worked with, so one client came to me and said, okay, he'd been CEO for a while and with this major sports and entertainment company. And he was saying, I feel like I have spent the last couple of years hand holding. And so my pet answer to that is listen more, amplify your empathy, communicate better. But in fact, over the pandemic, I had started working with so many leaders and kind of just at the edge who were saying, like, I feel like all we've done is handhold. How can we start to be more strategic? How can we engage people in a way that continues the caring? Because we've really doubled down on that in a way that's been in many cases transformative. But then pair that with this, let's be bold. Let's have an exciting kind of moonshot to work towards. And so the idea of getting excited about the future, the bold vision, co-creation, and what kind of processes and communication are required for that is something that I've just done a lot of that I think probably resonates with a lot of leaders as they try to make that shift from, okay, we're all okay to, and Hong Kong opened a year later than most. So maybe we're just behind, but I really do think that balance has been, it was sort of maybe too much in one direction in terms of productivity, quote unquote, to you. And then it went to, really thinking about our people, which is as it should be. And now we're sort of coming back and saying, okay, what is the appropriate balance for those things? And I think it's an individual leader reflection and also changes depending on the environment.
Fascinating. And I love that thinking also about, well, what things did work during the pandemic that we don't necessarily want to revert back and lose. So where you mentioned caring, to go, okay, let's make sure we've still got that. And as a leader, it's really important to still have that as a thread through how you lead, even if there isn't a global pandemic that's going on right now. I'm curious on productivity. What are you seeing or hearing when it comes to productivity right now from a leadership standpoint?
So I think especially during the virtual aspects that people, I saw this in my own board work where I was on the Exco and I was on these board meetings, and we used to have them in person. Everything switched to virtual. And there was a certain amount of amazing, like we had every month or so, we would have a board meeting at 8:00 in the morning and get up and you'd be out at 7:30. And it was like, I can just have my coffee and read the paper and, read my board papers and get on at 8:00. We're done by 9 because, of course, for some strange reason, we all have this efficiency mindset around virtual where we get things done. And of course, we sacrificed all of the personal interaction and the coffee breaks and all the side conversations. But that's when you say, productivity, that's what I think about. Like, there's always been this drive to efficiency and Six Sigma and all of that stuff. And a lot of my work in terms of the future has been, how do we do things in a way that ensures that we have the kind of, that we're in line with our strategic ambitions, that we're not super messy on our way there, but that we value some of the less efficient aspects of business that allow us to connect, that allow us to imagine, and allow us to co-create, and allow us to be inclusive. And a lot of those things people perceive as being, unproductive or may be a competing desire relative to all the commitments or all the desires that they want to achieve.
It's such a great point. I've had numerous conversations with leaders where they've said to me, I'm less productive in the office. And I say, okay, tell me more. Let's unpack that. And often they'll say, I stopped and had a 10-minute chat with one colleague, and then I went and had coffee with another, and I wasn't getting my work done. And I said, very similar to what you were saying there, of
What is your work?
Yeah. Building strong relationships is one of the most effective and efficient things you can do, because then when you've got the work stuff, you shortcut. You can really quickly go from A to B when you have those stronger relationships there with people, but they often come through the incidental conversation that happens. So yeah, I fully agree with you that productivity on its own is not the only thing to consider. There are some other things, as you said, that may appear on the surface to be unproductive, but from a longevity standpoint, they make a massive difference.
Yeah, and ultimately, that I do a lot with boards and governance, and I do quite a lot with future of work. And what I'm finding is the overlap is this idea of people sustainability, and the reality that, if talent is one of your last competitive advantages, then you need to understand what is it that I'm expecting from people, and how can I keep them, how can I keep the best talent collaborating well for the longest amount of time. So interesting research that, that I see, don't even necessarily want to believe, because it's runs counter to this idea that I have that people can, have very fluid relationships with work, is the value of tenure at companies. And actually, it's one of the things. It's part of longevity from the age perspective. It's not that you need people who are necessarily senior, or, doesn't really matter what their biological age is, but actually in terms of correlation to performance, but sometimes it's actually longevity within the company that can correlate with positive performance in terms of share price, et cetera. And so people sustainability is, the sustainability of your people, ensuring that they don't burn out, ensuring that they stay for a longer amount of time, that and all that has this great positive performance boost.
Oh, that's fascinating. I haven't heard that today. That's a really, really interesting one. And particularly for leaders to think about, where obviously you want to engage people, but it sounds like also to have had that tenure is an important piece as well. So yeah, that's really interesting. And I want to shift gears a little bit. What's the best, most practical advice you've ever been given to work smarter?
So it's interesting because it's not a life hack, I guess. It's actually really difficult. But one of the things I found when I left my corporate job was a way to prioritize. Because if you think that your corporate job is difficult, and it is, but somebody in a way is setting the priorities, and you know exactly what the goals are, and you're thinking about them, and you're creating them for your team, etc. But then you just do that, and you're kind of often not allowed to go way outside the lines. And the great thing about that is it provides you focus. So when you start your own company and your own work, you don't really have that. And for me, in that kind of year after I left my corporate job, it was really difficult. And I was researching, like, how do you structure your day? How do you decide what to work on? When, part of it is the gift of being like, I can work on anything. That's so fun. But over time, what I found was really about having 2 or 3 goals that are aligned with my values. And so, and it's part of now my future proof course. Like, I insist that people think about the future. And then the very next thing they do is, okay, I'm going to take a lot of time for reflection and decide what are some of my deep underlying values. So I'll give you an example. For me, when I did the work, and we have like worksheets for it, but one of them was strengthening communities. I was like, that's like a deep underlying value, like a generational value. My mom was that kind of person, and I have become that kind of person, a connector, a gatherer. And so when I decide what to do in terms of projects or time, if it falls into one of my, 3 or 4 values, and I make my goals based on those, then I do it 100%. I don't even think about it. Often, if it seems like, oh, it's not at my full rate or whatever, I go, I don't, but I got to take a second look, because this is a core value for me. And then if there's something else that hasn't really fallen into my core values, then I try to park it. I really don't do that.
Oh, I love that so much. So on that, before we get to some rapid fire questions, if people want to learn more about the exercises that you spoke about in your programs, where should they go to find out more information?
So for our programs, we have it all at futureprooflab.com. And I also have some of my talks and my more personal things at dianawoodavid.com. And for both of those, actually, there's a fantastic set of questions that we have for download, the Future Proof Checklist. And I've just been looking back at it because I thought, is this still relevant? That it was like a guiding principle. And it really is about what are the resources you need? What are the values that you have? Who are the people in your corner? That I still look back and go, no, that's like my Bible, those 13 questions. It's not big, right? But it's so important. And we have those available for people on both those websites. And LinkedIn, of course, I'm active there as well.
Fabulous, fabulous. Well, to finish off, I've got a couple of rapid fire questions. Are you up for them?
I am up for them. And okay. I have to tell you, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. What is the best purchase you've made for under, say, $100 over the last few years?
That was the one that I was talking about it with my daughter. I was like, I don't know. What should I say? I can't think. I don't do a lot of shopping. So the best purchase that I made under $100 was probably these little trinket bracelets. In June, I had the opportunity to have an audience with the Dalai Lama, and it was through the Asia Society and work I'd done with them in nonprofit. And we got these bracelets at the side of the road that are, made out of maybe gemstones, maybe not so much gemstones, and they're probably like $2 a piece. And he blessed them for me to give to some of my best girlfriends. And so that was really special. That was the best purchase.
Oh, you win. That is amazing. I love that answer. And what's the book that you've either recommended or gifted the most to other people?
Oh, that one was super easy. I'm such a book person. I have a long list of books, but the one recently that I love is Kai-Fu Lee's AI 2041. So he was head of AI for Microsoft and Google. He has an interesting position, has done that in the US and China. I've met him here in Hong Kong, and he does ideas about where AI is heading. And then he partnered with one of the most famous sci-fi writers in China, Stanley Yu, to do stories about what that actually looks like, and just totally brings it alive. Amazing. And then he goes in after and says, this is like the business aspect, the sort of tech and business aspect that says, these things are actually possible. Here's where they're happening already. Here are some ethical questions we need to be thinking about, et cetera. And that book, I just 100% love.
Oh, what a genius concept for a book too. That's fabulous. Amazing. And what is the most fearless thing you've done over recent years?
The most fearless thing that I've done, I think it's back to the values. It's to say no to a lot of work that it was lucrative or prestigious or whatnot, and just didn't match the values.
Yeah,
which is terrifying as somebody who has a small business.
I get it. Mine is I only work with clients that I love. And so love is a really strong word. But I work with people who are values-based, similar kind of thing. It is scary, isn't it? But it also feels really good.
It so works.
So what matters for you? So
yeah,
fabulous. And to round things off, what does outcomes over hours mean to you?
Outcomes over hours really means that the hours that I spend are in service to manifestations of those values, and that the other hours can be play, but anything else is really not about outcomes. The hours that count are the ones in service to my values.
Amazing, amazing. Well, Diana Wu, David, thank you so much for coming on the Outcomes Over Hours show.
My pleasure. I'm sure a little bit different than you'd think for a futurist in terms of Dalai Lama and deep values, but that is absolutely how I run my life and my business. So thank you. It's been a great conversation.
Future of work is all about being authentic, and this hasn't been scripted, so I love it, and it is very aligned. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Tina. Great to be here.